Hello all. This particular video will help you to understand transportation in human beings. Now, as we know, human beings are the most complex of all the animals present. So, to maintain their life, they actually follow a complicated circulatory system. Now, the circulatory system in human beings have got three main components. Blood, which is the fluid that will circulate in our body. Blood vessels. These are the tubes that will help the blood to circulate. And the heart, which is the muscular pumping organ that will circulate the blood around the body. Now, moving across with blood, blood is a fluid connective tissue present that has a liquid matrix in the form of plasma. Now, plasma comprises of 55% of the total blood volume and will have water, proteins, hormones, and other essential nutrients. The rest 45% is comprising of the blood cells like red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Now, moving across to the red blood cells, they are otherwise called erythrocytes, who are majorly responsible for transporting oxygen and carbon dioxide. Now, the cells are red because of the presence of hemoglobin. Now, as you have studied in the respiration chapter, that RBCs are responsible for binding oxygen. And whenever oxygen binds to the RBC, it forms oxyhemoglobin. Now, when it reaches the body cells, the oxygen will be released and hemoglobin will again return back to carry the oxygen molecules. Moving across to the white blood cells that are otherwise called leukocytes, they are colorless in nature and are larger than RBC. Now, their main work is to protect our body against infection by any kind of pathogens or disease-causing microorganisms. Now, normally, whenever we are discussing about blood vessels, they are the tubes which are responsible for carrying the blood from one place to another. Now, as we know, there are three types of blood vessels: arteries, veins, and capillaries. Now, arteries will carry oxygenated blood from the heart towards the brain and other parts of the body. So basically, artery will carry blood away from the heart. Now, there is an exception to this. Pulmonary artery is the only artery that will carry deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs. Now, veins will take the blood back to the heart to be reoxygenated. That is, their main work is to carry deoxygenated blood towards the heart. Now, the thinnest of all the blood vessels which can actually enter inside the cells are the capillaries. So basically, a network of tiny capillaries will help to join up the arteries and the veins. Now, most important thing to remember from this, arteries have got a thick muscular wall as compared to the veins, because they carry oxygenated blood, and to withstand the pressure, their walls should be thicker and elastic. In a similar way, veins, they have small flap-like structures called valves that are used to prevent the backflow of the blood. Now, moving across to the human heart. Now, this is a muscular organ which is found within our body, and it is majorly responsible for pumping the heart blood from one portion to another. Now, the human heart has got four chambers present: right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, and left ventricle. Now, atrium, they are the upper chambers and are thinner in nature. Their main work is to receive the blood, whereas deoxygenated blood is being pumped from the right atrium towards the lungs. In major cases, the ventricles are thicker as they are the chambers who are responsible for pumping blood out of the heart. Now, whenever blood is actually entering the heart, the chambers are going to relax, whereas whenever blood is to be pumped out, the chambers will contract. Now, during the complete cycle, you have to remember that the right side of the heart will have deoxygenated blood and the left side will have oxygenated blood present within it. Now, as and when in this particular portion, what we are trying to understand that in case of human beings, blood will enter the heart twice during one cardiac cycle. Once when deoxygenated blood from the whole body is being carried by the veins and it will enter inside the right atrium. Number two, when oxygenated blood will actually come up from the lungs and will enter the left atrium. Now, this type of circulation, which is actually seen in case of human beings, that is known as double circulation. Now, the presence of the four-chambered heart and double circulation will enable a proper body temperature of the animal to be maintained, a lot of energy will be properly utilized, and more importantly, oxygenated and deoxygenated blood will never mix with each other. Now, as and when each of the blood is actually moving from one part of the body to another, it is of utmost importance that the blood that is reaching our cells is majorly oxygenated, and the blood which is reaching the heart after utilization is deoxygenated in nature. Now, in case of fishes, there is a lot of issue and a vast difference is being seen from the human beings. Now, we know that fishes live in water and they respire through gills. Now, their heart chamber is only two, that is one atrium and one ventricle. So automatically what will happen, they show single circulation. Mixing of blood, that is oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, will take place for sure, and that's why they cannot regulate their body temperature. Once we take them out of water, they will die down, and hence they are called cold-blooded animals. Now, relating to blood, we have a pressure that is being exerted by the blood onto the walls of the arteries. Now, that particular pressure is known as blood pressure. And there is an instrument which is used to measure the blood pressure, that's called sphygmomanometer. Now, normally, there are two types of pressure that are being applied. One during ventricular contraction, another during ventricular relaxation. So, the pressure that is exerted during contraction, that is called as systolic pressure, and the pressure which is exerted during relaxation, that is diastolic pressure. For a normal human being, the pressure is 120/80. if by chance the blood is flowing at a faster speed and the arteries have become very narrow, so that might result in hypertension or high blood pressure. So, as and when we discuss about this particular portion, here it is being given in a proper manner that force exerted by blood on the walls of artery is always greater in arteries than in case of veins. Now finally, as we talk about platelets, remember platelets are responsible for clotting of the blood. It will clot the blood. Now how will it clot? Whenever there is a site of injury in the blood vessels, the nervous impulses will reach the platelet stating that there has been an injury and blood is flowing out. So the platelets will actually form a group of proteins that will go and bind at that particular position to block that particular pathway so that blood will not ooze out continuously. Now this is possible only when the injury is minimum. So this work is being done by the platelets, who are majorly responsible for preventing excessive loss of blood from the body. Now finally, just like blood, our body has got another circulating fluid that's called as the lymph or the tissue fluid. Now normally, whenever blood is passing through the capillaries, there are minute pores which are present within the capillaries, through which proteins, lymphocytes and all, they all will seep out into the tissue spaces. Now once they all will fill the tissue space, that is known as your lymph, which are being carried by lymphatic blood vessels, and they are responsible for carrying the different types of waste materials that are present within the tissue space area back towards the heart. Now the lymph will have more amount of lymphocytes and less amount of proteins. It is colorless in nature and it always flows in only one direction. Now majorly, whenever we are discussing about transportation in human beings, we should be focusing more on the movement of blood from heart to the different body parts and from the body parts towards the heart. Thank you.